Shifters, entrepreneurs on the move, with your host, Amanda Barr, bringing you power-packed 15-minute conversations with entrepreneurs who share their stories of shifting in life and business to keep on the move. Welcome to the show. This is your host, Amanda Barr, and our special guest today will not only inspire you, she's going to pull your heartstrings and get you excited about making a difference for those you meet. Our guest is Layla Lana with Just Be, a nonprofit organization working to connect families with their local community through raising awareness, creating partnerships, and providing training resources for sensory-friendly businesses, encouraging positive experiences for those with autism spectrum disorder. Welcome to the show, Layla.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's exciting.
Oh, my pleasure, and I'm excited to dive into your world. If you could, please take us down memory lane and tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so I am a mother, and I come from a professional dancer background. I'm a professional dancer, choreographer, and a director of a dance company for 20 plus years in the industry here in Los Angeles. So I've been very fortunate to be able to travel the world, work with many artists, and always been able to do what I love, my passion. But throughout my career, I always wanted to be a mom. So I had my first child, my son Rio, in 2008. And when Rio was 2.5, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And that was kind of a new journey for me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. This was very new in autism. I remember when he was diagnosed, the first thing that came to mind was like Rain Man, because there was not that much information. Right. But, through the road, we got a lot of help, and I had 2 other kids afterwards. And one night I took my son and my daughter, Leia, to just the local restaurant, the pizza restaurant that I grew up going to out in Calabasas. But on this particular night, it took really long for us to get seated, to get the pizza, and to get the check. And Rio had what they call a sensory overload meltdown. He started to cry, he started to scream, he started to bang his head. And Rio looks typical. He looks like every other kid, but he's low functioning, nonverbal. But you wouldn't know if you saw him outside and in public. So on this particular night, we just were waiting for that pizza, that check. And Rio just, started crying so much that all the customers around me started to scream at me to control my kid and what kind of mother am I and what a spoiled brat. And next thing I know, the restaurant kicked us out. And there I was outside in a Mayday situation with my son and my daughter in a total panic. I had to call my father to come kind of 911 and save us. He came and picked us up, and I was hysterical. I was very angry and upset, and I just remember saying out loud, why can't people be nice? Why can't they just be kind? Why can't they just be human and understand he's autistic? And when I got in the car, my makeup was everywhere because I was crying, and I reached for my daughter's little swaddle blanket and had bumblebees all over it, and I just said out loud, Just Be. My father is a pilot, so he said, bumblebees have mystified scientists for hundreds of years. Technically, a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly because its body is too long and fat and its wingspan is too short, and yet it lifts. It does the impossible. And I just looked at him and I said, yeah, just like autistic, families and kids, they can do the impossible. And that was it. I went home, I went to bed, and I remember the next morning I woke up and I was like, what if that restaurant had known that Rio was autistic? Like, what if they were trained, or what if they had just seated us right away? Would that night have gone down the way it did? And that was it. That was my call to action. That was the birth of Just Be, to create sensory-friendly environments and training to establishments so that families could go into these places and feel included and not excluded, and to build awareness. And that's where it began for Just Be, was that thought process of this inclusiveness that I never found, and being able to feel like I can have the same quality of life with my son as everybody else. So that is the base of Just Be, and to develop an app where after businesses become sensory-friendly environments, we would list them on the app, kind of like a Yelp of autism, and families would know where to go, where they could feel like it's safe zones, and whether it's hours of operation or discounts or roundup or events, we would finally be able to bridge that gap between this untapped market of like millions of families like myself that literally don't go out in public. because we're afraid of how we're going to be disrespected or discriminated or kicked out of places. So this is the vision of Just Be, of this inclusiveness, of this neurodiversity, and honoring and accepting, and not changing the child to fit the environment. You need to change the environment to fit the child. So this is Just Be.
I just have a big smile on my face.
I know.
Thank you for...
It's really magical. It's really magical for us,
know.
you know? Thank
you for telling your story. I mean, there's so many people out there, and I would love for you to, in a minute, maybe dive into the numbers, because it's kind of astonishing. We don't really, unless you're in the world, you don't really know or understand what's happening and how many families are impacted. So thank you for taking us on your personal story. And then also, our show's about shifting. You're going to shift a whole bunch of businesses and a whole movement of Just Be.
Correct.
And I love that. So maybe take us down that lane. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the numbers, because I think it'd be advantageous for our listeners to know.
Yeah, so autism is one of the fastest growing development disabilities of all time. It's, according to the Center of Controlled Diseases, the CDC, in 2019, they diagnosed it as 1 out of every 54 kids in America is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which we know these numbers are even higher. It's gone up 8,000% since the 70s. We know it's a lot higher because the Latino and the African American communities aren't really getting diagnosed. So there's lack of education, awareness, resources, but mainly stigma for these cultures to admit that they have a child that's on the spectrum. It's a very hush-hush. They don't like to talk about it. So I would say the numbers are much higher than 1 out of every 54. There is no cure for autism. Still to this day, they don't have no idea what's causing it. It's not hereditary. It's not genetic. They get that from Down syndrome. But as far as autism, there's still no idea what's causing it. Some doctors say it's environmental. Maybe it's food. I mean, it's 5G. We don't really know what's actually causing autism. It's not a disease, it's a diagnosis. So someone who's autistic is going to live a full life. Their life expectancy is not going to be shortened because they're autistic. The average person will cost anywhere from $1.4 to $2.4 million in government funding throughout their lifetime. The average family spends at least $60,000 a year in resources. According to Autism Society and CNN, they believe that it will surpass diabetes and in the next 5 years, costing the U.S. $1 trillion a year. You know, diabetes is I believe it's 10% of America. So this is huge. This is not going away. You've got to understand there's not one person that maybe has an autistic child, or a neighbor or a friend. That you know people. We're interacting, but what we have is this huge disconnect, and this is where Just Be comes in, is that there's a lot of money being spent in awareness, autism awareness, or don't bully, millions of dollars in these campaigns, but the big disconnect is that most families that have an autistic child or an adult, they don't go out in public. Like I said, they're afraid of how they're going to be perceived. So imagine never, ever going out to a restaurant or to the movies or taking a family vacation, literally just living in your room your whole life, watching television on your iPad. And I think, and I just urge your listeners to listen to this, the greatest parallel I can actually explain to you, maybe you can understand, is what we've experienced during this pandemic. I mean, what you've experienced during COVID-19, not being able to go to work, not see your friends, total isolation, is really a life of autism. So we have this wonderful parallel to understand what it feels like for my son to live in his house. And that's not good enough. You know, we need to be better. We need to kind of break that barrier. And I do believe it's a corporate social responsibility to help these families. And if you've got 1 out of every 54 kids in America, this is an untapped market of millions of families not spending money in their local communities. And every business has downtime. You know, every restaurant has hours of operation that are slow, where they're paying employees just to stand there. You could fill those hours with this untapped market. So that's revenue. There's a revenue model to this, where businesses would be able to kind of bridge that gap, and then families will feel like they're included in their community. So I believe in my heart of hearts it's a win-win for businesses, because every business every business needs more business, especially after what we've gone through this pandemic. I mean, I was a small business owner. I had hours where it was slow, and if I could fill that with hundreds and thousands of families, you know, that would, for me, I don't want to be in a restaurant at 6 or 7 p.m. That's crazy. I want to go at 4. I want to go at 5. Where it's slow, because then I can have this experience where my son is calm and the atmosphere, and we can control the noise, and, you know, there's more of a respect level, and we can feel welcomed. This is where we're going with this. Is this, and neurodiversity, for some of your viewers that may not know this, listeners, neurodiversity is a civil right under our Constitution. So technically you can't kick out kids out of a restaurant or off an airplane because they make too much noise because they're autistic, and yet it happens every single day. So I believe in my heart of heart that Just Be is a movement for greater understanding for people with disabilities and neurodiversity. So that's kind of, besides it being tech or discounts or inclusiveness, it's a movement for change. That's why it's Just Be the Change.
I mean, it's so incredible, and it sounds like you've just thought about this in every which way possible, because, you know, businesses, to be trained and to know how to handle these situations, and to be able to really be there and encourage families to come in, and during times where it would be beneficial, it is a win-win for the families. They get to have that life that they always wanted, and the businesses to make more money. Is there anything else on that? I mean, in terms of like training, I know that for a lot of us out there, I mean, even myself, I mean, I don't even understand what I could do if I even were around somebody and they needed help and I didn't know. Maybe you can share a little bit of that too, because we're all in this together. And we all do usually know somebody, but maybe we just don't know how's the best way to help.
Exactly. I mean, I was really fortunate to have the webinar and the whole curriculum that was designed by one of the leading doctors in the field, Dr. Diane Coulinet. She wrote the curriculum. So we have a huge rock star in the industry who's actually developed this curriculum that would train these businesses. We see that with, you know, big corps with harassment videos and OSHA and all these rules and stuff, but they've never really tapped into the special needs or the disabilities of this community. So yeah, it's a webinar. Businesses would hire Just Be, which is a nonprofit. They would train their employees and employers. They would take a webinar. They would learn there's many multiple choice questions. And then after they take the curriculum and they take the test and everything, they become certified. And then from that point, after they become certified, they put the little bumblebee sticker on the window. We upload with all the social media, and we let everyone know that this place has been trained for those incidents where, you know, if you're nonverbal and you don't make eye contact and you don't respond, people, sometimes cashiers will be like, what's with this person? And immediately there's this disconnect of understanding the sensory, or when you see someone flapping, or you see a young boy chewing or something, or maybe they're making loud noises, the first thing is to look at them. And you know, the best 5-letter word is smile. My son, even though he's nonverbal, he hears everything. He understands like 3 languages. He's a savant. He's a genius. Just because he can't talk doesn't mean he doesn't hear you. Doesn't mean he doesn't understand. And so we got to build this new way of seeing people with tolerance and empathy and compassion. And there's so many different traits, where there's a trait called masking. And this is for the high functioning, where a lot in girls mainly. Originally they thought autism was just for boys. That's why like Autism Speaks and the color for autism is blue, because they thought only boys could be autistic. Now we know it's girls, and girls usually get diagnosed much later in life, in their teens or even in their 20s. They have this ability called masking. Masking is just kind of like, imagine a lot of copying and paste. They copy your behavior so that they can feel adequate in society. And imagine how exhausting that would be all day, to be like copying people's behaviors, because they don't really know who they are or what they feel yet. And it's just such a confusing feeling. So we have to be able to understand all the spectrums, whether it's autism or it's Asperger's, or if they have sensory overload, or, you know, all these different scenarios that can happen. And if you are in a restaurant and you see, say, we're giving a restaurant example, and there is a meltdown situation, you're overwhelmed, like what happened to me when I was in the pizza restaurant. If I had met you and you were sitting next to me, and if you could have just helped me with my daughter, I left my purse, my phone, my kid almost, like I was so overwhelmed. And what I really needed was just some help. And that comes with understanding the kindness and getting involved and trying to work with your community. This is what B is about, to just be kind, to just be human, just to be nice. This is what we're looking for.
Incredible. And to smile. I think that's a good reminder.
Everything.
A good reminder for all of us is to smile and to ask. I mean, sometimes there are those situations, and it doesn't take too much to just say, how can I help, even if it's just for a quick moment. So thank you for bringing those quick little tips that we all can use. And you're just packed with so much information, but I always like to bring our podcast to a close with some shifter wisdom. And you're an entrepreneur, and now you've launched a nonprofit. What would be some advice that you would give to somebody if they are, shifting and trying to make things happen? What's kept you on the move, and what would you suggest to keep them on the move?
Well, I think first and foremost, one of the beginning feelings of Just Be was that fear of, like, who am I? I'm just a mom. Like, what do I have that can actually change the world? I'm so small, and we all say, we should change this in the world should be more like that. But to be the change is very scary. It's overwhelming to think that this one little mother, this mother on a mission, can really make a difference. But you can. If you really believe and you trust in the messages that are received, and you believe in God, and just to go for it, to really be in your passion. Because when you have your passion and you have a dream and a vision, like that vision into reality, you can do it. You have to build your tribe. Letting me speak on this podcast right now, and to build that grassroots movement, it takes time. When I think of like Rosa Parks or an Aaron Brockovich, they probably were sitting there going like, this was not the goal. Like I've woken up some days going like, what am I doing? Can I do this? I'm just Rio's mom. But you know what? Believe in that process, honor that process, and don't get into the fear. If you are moved to change the world, and everyone's always saying like, oh, autism, where's the cure? Where's the cure? And I always say, there is no cure. The reason why there's no cure is because they're here to cure us. We need to be better. We need to be kinder. We need to be more empathetic for all human beings. So there's always this beautiful lesson. It takes time to change your eyes and to see a different reality, but we can do it together, stronger together, motivate each other. But anyone who has that feeling in their stomach where they just, like I always say, the end game is not about the money or making this happen. The end game is to make a better life for my son. That's all I want. And just remember, it's not about the disabilities, it's about the possibilities, and to be that change. This is the most important, to just be that change.
How can they get in touch with you? I mean, I know they're going to want to find out more businesses out there to get the training. What's the best way to get in touch with you and as you're taking this thing to the next level?
Yeah, we're growing, It's Just Be, B-E-E, like a bumblebee, thechange.com is the website. And on all social media, Just Be The Change, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So you can just leave messages. We're, of course, a nonprofit and growing and just evolving every single day. And just please reach out. If you are a mom or a parent, a friend, a grandma, a grandpa, a teacher, an influencer, a neighbor, anyone, share, like, spread the word, join, be part of, be a believer in this. And that's how things change. It's like my son, he has no voice, but together we can be the voice of millions of people and children just like him. So we're in it together for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, to hear your story, Rio's
story. Thank you so much.
So incredible story. We are going to be the change with you and help spread the word and cheering you on every step of the way. And for all those listening, reach out to Layla, reach out to Just Be, and for you out there, keep on the move.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed the episode today. We appreciate each one of you for listening and hope you left inspired and motivated to keep on the move. If you think this episode might help or inspire someone else, please share. Don't forget to subscribe and keep in the loop to hear more incredible stories of entrepreneurs like yourself on the move. Thank you for our supporters, RTB Capital Group, Financial Powerhouse, Callcast, and Power Podcasting. Now, get out there and keep on the move.